Hello and welcome to the viewers of this video. This is the Orange Fan here, bringing you another entry for the episode Recap and Thoughts category. This video will be dedicated to the A segment of episode 26 of The Loud House, Study Muffin. We begin this segment with Lincoln and Clyde walking back home from school, and Lincoln is disappointed with himself because he ended up getting an F on the most recent test in the class. He also admits to Clyde that he's been getting C's and D's lately, even though he's usually an A's and B's student, and he fears that he'll fail 5th grade as a result. Clyde also shares these fears because he's worried he'll fall into the wrong crowd if he goes on to middle school without Lincoln. We then get to see a brief image of Clyde's imagination where he imagines what he would be like as a delinquent. Lincoln's plan to turn this around is to enlist the help of his child prodigy or genius prodigy of a sister, Lisa, to tutor him, but we wouldn't have much of a story if it were that easy, would we? So what happens is Lisa is unable to tutor Lincoln because her schedule is busy tutoring some of the other Loud sisters, but she assures Lincoln that there is a way to still find a tutor for him. She explains that at the community college that she teaches at, some of the students there help tutor students to get extra credit. So Lincoln proceeds to do just that. Now, whether it's the same day or the next day, it isn't made too clear, but at some point in time, the doorbell rings, and when Lincoln answers the door, he finds a young man with a British accent there. His name is Hugh, and he's the college student who agreed to tutor Lincoln. So Lincoln welcomes him into the house, and before they can get started tutoring, though, Lori happens to walk into the room that they're in while talking to someone on the phone, but then she becomes surprised when she sees Hugh there, and she drops her phone. Hugh picks it up and offers to give it back to her, or he intends to give it back to her, and we get a quick scene from Lori's perspective where Hugh is moving his head in slow motion with music. He's like doing this. And yeah, like I said, there was some music playing and it was all in slow-mo. And Lori makes a noise that some would describe as sounding like a goose. At least Lana thinks it sounds like a goose because she rushes into the room with a net to catch the goose. But then she sees Hugh, and the same scene happens that happened before with Lori with the slow motion and the music. And then she makes a noise that many would describe as sounding like a sheep. And in fact, Lenny thinks that there is one in the room, and she comes in with a face mask and cucumbers on her face. But when she removes the cucumbers and she sees Hugh, she rushes off to remove the cucumbers and the face paint. And the rest of the Loud sisters, except for Lily, she's the only sister not present in this segment. Apparently they heard all the commotion because they come down to see what's up. And yeah, they see Hugh too. And Lenny returns, and Hugh introduces himself to all of them, and while Lincoln tells his sisters that he needs to study and Hugh is trying to help him tutor him, the sisters make it very clear that they like Hugh. In fact, even the pets like Hugh. So Lincoln and Hugh try to go into different places in the house, but the sisters keep wanting to hang around Hugh. When Lincoln tries to take Hugh upstairs into his room, thinking that'll be a good place to commence with the tutoring, Lynn Sr. sees Hugh, and he's quite pleased as well. Because in his case, Lynn Sr. spent a semester of college in England, so as he explains when he introduces himself to Hugh. And he actually does introduce himself as Lynn Sr. This is the first segment where his name is said out loud in the segment rather than just being mentioned in supplementary material or being indirectly confirmed. So we continue with Lincoln and Hugh going into different parts of the house, and they even go into the doghouse at one point to get a moment to commence with the tutoring. But yep, the sisters and Lynn Sr. all keep finding their location. Finally, Lincoln puts his foot down and explains to his family members that he needs to study and that Hugh is here to help tutor him, and they can't do that if they're constantly being distracted. And so finally they get a chance to tutor, or the tutoring is able to proceed with no interruptions. By the time it's over, Hugh actually comments that Lincoln is doing great in all his subjects, and he's surprised that he needed help with tutoring. This confuses Lincoln because of the recent dive that his grades have been taking, but Hugh figures that it's probably just in Lincoln's head, saying that he might be overly nervous about it, and telling him that a little more confidence in himself will help him out. Hugh then decides that he's no longer needed, and the sisters and Lynn Sr. are not happy to see him go, and they chase after him as he leaves on his, well, it's an old style bike because it's got that big wheel in the front and it has that small wheel in the back. So that's what Hugh's riding as he's escaping from the mob of Louds after wanting to chase after him. When the next day rolls around, though, Lincoln still failed the test, and he doesn't know why. And Luann makes a pun about Hugh because she's thinking this is a good excuse for Hugh to come back over, and the sisters fight over who gets to call Hugh. But then their fighting stops when Lincoln happens to mention that it's Miss DiMartino who will fail him, not Agnes Johnson, his teacher. And they're surprised to hear this. It turns out that Agnes had an accident riding a mechanical bull, so she got a foot injury, so she wasn't able to teach for a while. Miss DiMartino is the substitute teacher. And Luna says it's no wonder why Lincoln's grades have took a nosedive. She comments how Miss DiMartino is so attractive that there have been other instances of boys being so attracted to Miss DiMartino that they can't focus on their classwork and their grades. Lori even comments that the same thing happened to Bobby in the past. And Lincoln's not sure about it at first, but then he thinks it over, and we get some flashbacks, and we do get to see Miss DiMartino for ourselves, and, well, yeah, Lincoln has a crush on Miss DiMartino, but he's not the only one. Clyde does too, as do the redheaded trio members, and we see a couple of the other boy students also are attracted to Miss DiMartino or have a crush on her. And Lincoln admits that, yeah, it's not so different from how his sisters reacted around Hugh. And Lenny says she doesn't know what Lincoln's talking about, but we see that the sisters are all wearing these sweaters Lenny made with Hugh's face on them. Lenny and Lisa they printed out pictures of online babies where what if Hugh was the dad of their child. And Luann suggests that Lincoln try to get a do-over on the test, but Lincoln says that still won't do any good if he ends up getting distracted again. Lisa explains that the simple solution is to keep Miss DiMartino out of Lincoln's line of vision while he's taking the redo test. She demonstrates this by holding up a smartphone with a picture of Hugh on it, and every time she shows it to Lori, Lori gets distracted. When she takes it away, Lori is able to recite Bobby's full name, and she eventually deletes the picture to get that point across, because Lori's able to recite the entire name of Bobby, which is Roberto Alejandro Martinez Mien Luis Santiago Jr. Boy, that is a mouthful. And Lincoln comes up with an idea about how he is able to do the redo test without being distracted. And after he leaves, Lisa assures the rest of her siblings, or her sisters present, that she saved some pictures of Hugh on iCloud, apparently, because they didn't like it when the picture got deleted, or was deleted. So what's Lincoln's course of action to not fail the redo test? He actually takes it inside his locker. So Miss DiMartino is standing outside of the locker, and she gives Lincoln the test by slipping it through the air vents in the locker. And by the next day, Lincoln has passed. He got an A on the redo test, and he tells Clyde this, saying that he doesn't have to worry about failing 5th grade anymore. And as he and Clyde are walking into the classroom, he says he'll have to shield his eyes from the beauty of their teacher, only to find out that Miss DiMartino's subbing for the class is no longer in effect. Agnes is now teaching the class again, although she is in a wheelchair because her foot still needs to recover. And then they're about to take part in gym class, and they find out Miss DiMartino is the substitute for gym now. It turns out that Coach Bukowski's foot got run over by Agnes's wheelchair, so Miss DiMartino has to take over. And the segment ends with Lincoln, Clyde, and several other boy students being distracted by Miss DiMartino's, the sight of Miss DiMartino distracts them from gym, and that's how we end the segment. Now, I really enjoyed this segment. I thought it was a really fun one, and there's a couple of reasons why I liked it. And, well, for starters, let's talk about Hugh. I thought he was a really likable character. He was very sincere about helping Lincoln tutoring Lincoln, and yeah, he seemed like a good tutor. It's the kind of tutor that you would want to have around you if you ever needed tutoring. And yeah, I thought it was pretty funny how the Loud sisters were all attracted to Hugh. I know some people thought it was strange how some of the younger ones or younger sisters were attracted to Hugh because he's a college student, but I mean, as the segment itself showed us, I mean, Lincoln was attracted to, or had a crush on his substitute teacher, Miss DiMartino. And yeah, it's natural for a kid to kind of have like a puppy dog crush on a adult, not necessarily like a teacher, but yeah, sometimes celebrities. It's like, yeah, like just puppy dog crushes. Like, it doesn't really go any further than that. So that seemed normal to me. And yeah, it was kind of, I thought it was pretty hilarious how apparently all the Loud sisters had something in common they were attracted to. And like, yeah, I could see that even with Lisa. Like, yeah, she's 4 years old, but she also is a prodigy. So yeah, I could see how she would be attracted to Hugh too, even if you might not usually expect that from a 4-year-old. And even, yeah, with some of the other sisters, like, yeah, I could understand it. It probably was just meant to be a reflection of those kind of crushes that everyone gets once in a while, or most people at least, or if not everyone. And yeah, like it was said earlier, this was the segment where Lynn Sr.'s name was actually said out loud, and we did get to learn a little more about him. So he spent some time in England during a semester at college. Oh, and during one of the moments where the sisters were trying to watch Hugh and Lincoln tutor Hugh while he was tutoring Lincoln, they used a telescope through the chimney at one point, and there was a blue eye in there, and we found out it was Lola. So it actually reminded me of Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends in the sense that While the art style didn't show us eye color for the characters, there were indication that they actually did have specific eye colors, even though the art style didn't show it. The relation to Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends being that Frankie Foster, who was also voiced by Grey Griffin, funny enough, her driver's license mentioned that she had green eyes, and thanks to the telescope in this segment, we know that Lola has blue eyes, and that indirectly confirms that Lana has blue eyes as well, given that they're identical twins. So it's safe to assume at least a good portion of the Loud siblings probably have blue eyes. So if any fans wanted to describe, were theorizing or speculating about that, that's something to go off of. Oh, and speaking of other revelations, this segment also indirectly revealed Mr. Santiago's full name, because Senior and Junior are titles that are used when the family members sharing the name are parent and offspring. And since Bobby has Junior to him, that means Mr. Santiago is Bobby Senior. Now, whether he actually goes by Bobby like his son, or if he goes by Roberto, we don't know as of the recording of this video. And well, there's a lot we don't know about Mr. Santiago, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So, overall, yeah, I thought this was a fun segment overall. I liked how, I thought it was pretty relatable to have a situation where the Loud siblings, whether it be Lincoln or 9 of his sisters, were attracted or had a crush on someone, and it was a nice way to reveal some other little details in the series. Like, we got to meet another staff member, or in the substitute teacher, Miss DiMartino. We got to learn a little bit about what Lynn Sr. did before he got married. Got to learn Bobby's full name, and by extension his dad's name, and Hugh was a likable character. I hope we get to see him again. He seemed like a very supportive tutor, and that's a good thing. It was good he cared about helping Lincoln improve his grades. And it was good to see Lincoln also cared about his grades too, that he's usually an A's and B's student. That was a nice touch too. So, yeah, this had a lot of funny moments and a lot of nice tidbits that expand the world that the show takes place in, so it was a good segment in my book. As to be expected, we'll be covering the B segment next. Take care, and until next time.